Okay, well, welcome everyone. This is episode 13, I believe, of Being Present with Leonard. And before we go any further, I'd just like to share that I'll be taking about a month's break, so there'll be no live webcasts on Monday afternoons, as there has been for quite some time, because I'm moving. And so I need some time to accomplish that. It's quite a challenge, but so far it's all going quite well. So I'm glad you're here and welcome to today's episode. So to get started, I'd just like to very, very briefly go over the two steps of this teaching. And then I will answer some questions. I have some very good questions here that have been submitted, and I'll answer them shortly. So there are two steps to this teaching. I'm sure most of you know that by now. Step one is learning the art of being present. And step one must always come first. You just, during your day, you remember to be present many times each day. At times you sit down and it's like a meditation. You close your eyes, you do the presence meditation, you become very, very present with your body breathing, or very present with the sound you hear, moment to moment. Very present with the feeling of your feet touching the floor. In other words, you're present with whatever's here in the moment with you that you're aware of with your eyes closed. Obviously, your body breathing is the most obvious. It's the easiest to be present with. But you can be present with sound. You can be present with the feeling of the chair against your back. And as you become more and more present, I'm just adjusting something here. As you become more and more present, you'll find yourself opening into presence itself. You feel present just as everything else is of the present moment. You feel like you're of the present moment. That's your experience. You're one with what is here. That's step one. And slowly, slowly, you settle into deeper and deeper levels of presence. Slowly, slowly, you're present for longer and longer periods of time, until it just becomes so natural, so easy to be present. In fact, it is your natural state. It's the truth of who you are to be present. When you go into the world of the mind and the dream, you're disconnecting from the truth of who you are, and you're actually becoming someone that you're not. So we have to ask ourselves, who are you? Who are you when you're present, compared to who are you when you're caught in the dream? And they're totally different dimensions of you. So I won't go further into that. That's step one. Step two is necessary because we're so habituated to living in the world of the mind. We've been living there forever. And well, for many, many lifetimes, I should say, many, many lifetimes. We're completely habituated to living in the past and future world of the mind, and we're addicted to thinking. So it's no easy task to liberate yourself from that dream, that world of the mind that never stops thinking, always taking you somewhere into the past or somewhere into the future. But step two is really helpful in this regard, because step two involves bringing conscious awareness to all the ways you're pulled out of presence. It involves bringing conscious awareness to all the obstacles to your being present. It involves bringing conscious awareness to how you get pulled out of the story or the dream. Who are you when you're caught in the dream? How do you keep yourself in the dream? What do you need to let go of to come out of the dream and become present and open into the truth of who you are? So those two steps really should support you very, very strongly in your journey of awakening, because it is a journey. It's almost step by step. Now, you might have openings, sudden, profound openings, and then there's no journey. You're just here. And if you could remain here, then you don't need step two. But if you find you're being caught back into the dream, back into the mind, back into the past and future, back to those limiting beliefs, those repressed feelings, losing yourself in others, all the judgments, if you find yourself caught back into that illusory world of separation, then you have step 2 to guide you through it. Step 2 is almost like a map. It's almost like a GPS map where you can find your way, identify where are you in that world of the mind, where are you in the past or the future, what happened, how did you get there, who are you in that dream. So the 2 steps together, they're very interdependent, these 2 steps. Presence, mastery of the mind. Presence, mastery of the mind and ego. Those 2 steps playing with each other, playing against each other, playing in support of each other as you slowly liberate yourself from the past and future world of the mind, the dream, the story, and you open into more and more fundamental levels of presence. It's really that simple. Now, of course, if you want elaboration on those 2 steps, if you want me to elaborate, then I suggest you watch the previous episodes. I've covered so much in all this time. So I have some really nice questions that I'd like to answer now. The first question is from Melissa from South Africa. Dear Leonard, thank you for your powerful words on presence. Is it possible to remain as present when there are highly charged and troublesome thoughts and emotions? How to see them as presence itself? Thank you for your clear presentation and beautifully helpful webpage. Okay, Melissa, well, the more present you are, the more established in presence, the more familiar you are with being present, the more moments you've spent in presence, the more you've opened up into presence, the easier it is to deal with what you describe as highly charged and troublesome thoughts and emotions. How to see them as presence itself? Well, you don't really see the thoughts and emotions as presence itself, but you are present and you never ever lose your presence. It never goes away. You're always present. And the presence that you are is always here. But you disconnect to it if you go too far into the dream. You disconnect from the truth that is ever present within you. So the real beauty of presence is it's a transcendent state of consciousness. These thoughts and highly charged emotions are still coming from the dream. Their origin is in the dream. They might be arising in the moment. The thought might be arising in the moment. But what the thought is about is never of the present moment. It's always the past or the future. And mostly it's the past. And mostly the source and origin of these difficult thoughts and highly charged feelings it's all originating in childhood or even possibly a past life. But we don't need to worry about that right now. Let's just deal with this lifetime. So what do you do if highly charged feelings or thoughts are arising, troublesome thoughts? What do you do? Well, the thoughts, it's a different approach, whether it's a thought or a feeling. If it's a troublesome thought, just be aware of it. Write it down. Go for a walk and express it, whatever it is. Don't run away from it. Don't try and get rid of it. Don't repress it. Don't judge it. Just own, acknowledge, confess. Ooh, thinking. You might say, ooh, very troublesome thought. You want the thought to know that you're aware of it, but you're not identified with it. You're aware of it, but you're not judging or rejecting it. You're aware of it, but you're not believing in what the thought is all about. You're just aware a thought is arising. It feels troublesome, and it's either past or future thought. And if you identify with the thought, you're either going to find yourself in the past, very quickly in the past or future world of the mind. So it's really not complicated. In fact, the more present you are, the more you open into presence, the easier it is to witness those thoughts. That's the whole point of the presence meditation. Let me remind you briefly what the presence meditation is. It's so simple, and it's like many other meditations with maybe just a tiny variation. Who knows? I don't know all the meditations out there, but the presence meditation is so simple. You just close your eyes and you're present with your body breathing. Your body breathes in, your body breathes out. That's all you need to know. Your body breathes in, your body breathes out. You are the one who is present, aware of the body breathing. That's the awakened you, the one who is present, aware of the body breathing. Now, if a thought arises, instantly you notice it from presence. Of course you do. Who is noticing that thought arising? I am. It's still awakened presence, aware of a thought arising. But once again, I don't reject or judge the thought. I don't believe in the thought. I just acknowledge it, thinking, then back to the body breathing. It's really so simple. That's how you deal with troublesome thoughts, or for that matter, any thought. The whole point of the presence meditation is not to stop thought, but to become more and more aware of thought as it arises. So that's troublesome thoughts, any kind of thought, a benign thought. You don't need to believe in your thoughts. You can have your thoughts, you can share your thoughts, you can speak your thoughts aloud. They're just not true. They're just thoughts. They have no meaning. So don't get lost in your thoughts. Even profound spiritual thoughts are still just thoughts. They're pointing to something, but they're not what they're pointing to. What they're pointing to is absolutely beyond the thought. So it's really that simple. Be present, bring more and more awareness to your thoughts. So that's in relation to troublesome thoughts. But what about highly charged emotions? Well, that's kind of a little bit different. You've got to go through a process. And I can't go into it too much here, but I've shared this teaching about how to deal with highly charged or troublesome emotions as they're arising. If you want more information, you just go to my website, leonardjacobson.com, and you'll find there many, many videos, free videos. You'll find free audios. And in these videos and audios, I'm constantly sharing how to be with these highly charged thoughts and emotions. So I suggest you check that out if you find yourself interested. But let me briefly go over it again, just very briefly. So the most difficult emotion to deal with, and I'm referring to repressed emotions, emotions you've had repressed for many years. They're the most difficult to deal with. Just a moment. Things are popping up on my screen, which I don't want them there. Anyway, anger is the most difficult and the most challenging because most of us don't know how to be with anger. We have no clue. First of all, anger is always a response to hurt. So whenever you feel angry, if you can just connect with the hurt, the anger can disappear. You don't need to stay with anger. But most of us don't know how or don't want to feel the deeper levels of hurt and pain. So we go to anger as a way of deflection, escape from those painful feelings so we don't have to feel them. In fact, what we do usually is we think our feelings rather than feel our feelings. So we have to learn how to... Okay, someone else is calling me. Excuse me, everyone. Forgot to turn that off. Okay, I'm in a little bit of a rush today because I've been packing and it's very tiring. But I'm glad to be here sharing this with you. So with anger, you have to master the art of allowing the feeling, the emotion, the anger to arise and to express through you. Allow anger to be all that it is. Let anger tell its story. Let anger blame and cuss and kill whatever it wants to do to to express itself and fulfill itself. You let all of that arise, but then there's enough presence awake in you because you've been following step one. There's enough presence awake in you that you can be a witness to the whole show as it unfolds through you. What is anger angry about? Who is anger blaming? Where does this come from? Let the anger rage and rip. Let it do whatever it wants. But at the same time, you're just present witnessing it, witnessing the whole thing as it opens up within you. So it's like you have to master two dimensions at the same time. On the one hand, I'm an angry man or woman, whoever you are out there. I'm very, very angry and I'm expressing the anger, and I'm volatile and I'm full in the anger and I'm expressing it and I'm loving the anger and I'm taking it over the top. I'm being ridiculous. I'm letting anger be ridiculous. I'm helping it exaggerate. And then when I start laughing, because anger is so funny, it's so ridiculous, that's when the moment of healing and release occurs, when you start laughing because you recognize how ridiculous anger is. When you really get to know anger deeply and intimately, you'll realize that anger is willing to kill for the slightest hurt. And that's why we keep it buried within us, because you can't go around killing people. Of course you can't. But if you allow the anger to express in the way that I'm describing, it just releases from you. If you hold it and you repress it, and you repress it more and you push it down more, then maybe you'll finish up killing someone. The real problem is not anger. The real problem is repression of anger in your poor, innocent, lovely body. Your body doesn't deserve that. So don't be afraid of anger. Pay attention. When you feel angry, someone might have triggered it. Somebody might have said or done something that triggered the anger. Go to your room, kill them 3 times, and then thank them. It has nothing to do with the person you think made you angry. All that happened is they're giving you an opportunity to liberate the repressed anger from the past, most likely childhood. So that's anger. Of course, there are feelings associated with anger that you also have to be aware of. Resentment. It's like a side aspect of anger. Resentment, blame, rage, all of those sorts of feelings are all associated with anger, where you make someone else wrong. It's someone else's fault. Well, the truth is, it's nobody else's fault, because you chose to repress the anger when you were very young, and you've chosen to keep it repressed until today, or until when you did liberate it. So that's anger. Now let's go to the next level, because there's only a number of feelings you have to be dealing with. Anger, and then underneath anger, hurt, sadness, pain. Now that's really easy. Feel it. If hurt, sadness, pain is triggered, what do? Don't go to anger. Feel the hurt. Feel the sadness. Let the sadness arise within you. Let the pain be here fully. It can't hurt you. It's all from the past. So there's nothing to be afraid of. Let the hurt, let it all come up. And what happens? What will happen if you let all the hurt, sadness, pain arise? You'll cry. That's all. I've never known anyone to cry more than a couple of days maximum. Maybe more like a couple of hours, or maybe more like a couple of minutes. It really doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. Just let the tears, let the hurt, let the pain surface, express, and flow through you. And then you'll find underneath the hurt, sadness, pain is tremendous joy. Now, what comes underneath the hurt, sadness, pain are all the unfulfilled needs from your childhood. Which needs were not met in your childhood? Was it a need to be seen? Was it a need for somebody to be present with you? Was it a need to be heard? Was it a need to be accepted and included? Which need was not met in your childhood? Was it a need to be held and hugged? Was it a need to be acknowledged? What was that unconscious need, that unfulfilled need? Because that unfulfilled need will continue to, what's going on here? That unconscious and unfulfilled need will continue to play out throughout the rest of your life, for all of your life. So, it's not that difficult. I'm getting all these Instagram messages. I have no idea why. What's that about? Okay. Anyway, bear with me, folks. I'm just a wee bit distracted, but I'm still present. Although there is some element of the story there with me right now. First of all these things coming in, Instagram messages, I don't know why that's happening, but also the thought of what I'll do after this meeting is over, after we've completed this episode. I've got a lot of packing to do. Anyway, leaving that aside, that's how you deal with the hurt. Let it all surface. The unfulfilled needs, let them surface. And don't lose yourself in the pursuit of those unfulfilled needs, a need for love. It's a substitute need. It's not your true need. A need for acceptance, substitute need. Need for acknowledgement, recognition, need to be special. These are all substitute needs for the true and original need, which is, I just need you to be present. Will you please be present? This is the healthiest thing you can say to anyone. Would you please be present with me? I can't imagine a better thing to say to anyone. The only problem is hardly anyone on planet Earth is saying that to each other. They're not saying it. There's very few people on Earth inviting you into presence. And we need to be invited by each other. Invite each other into presence. I invite you into presence. You invite me into presence. We invite each other into presence. And as we, okay, I don't know what's going on with Instagram. Anyway, as we invite each other into presence, we open into a kind of oneness. Not a kind of oneness. As we come together into presence, we open into oneness. Now, the last feeling that you have to deal with is really fear. And that fear dates way back. It dates all the way back to the beginning of time. It dates back to the moment you came out of the womb. It's a fear of the unknown, fear of dying, fear of being alone, fear of not knowing what happens next, fear of not being in control, fear of danger, fear of being unsafe. But these fears are not real. They're just fantasies that the mind creates. One thing that I think is worth really being aware of is, because it often generates fear, are these two words. What if? What if this happens? What if that happens? We have a tendency to go to, like disastrous, a disastrous view of what might happen in the future. What if the COVID never goes away? What if the pandemic never ends? What if my car breaks down? What if I don't know the way to where I'm going? There's so many variations of what if. So be aware of what if, because what if is always coming from the dream. What if this happens? What if that happens? So that's taking you into the future. And then, of course, looking back into the past with regret or blame or guilt or resentment or anger, all of that takes you into the past. So either way, you're being taken into the past or the future, and you're being taken out of presence. Okay, it's just part of the journey, coming into right relationship with your thoughts and your feelings and your repressed feelings. You also have to come into right relationship with your ego. You have to come into right relationship with the inner child, which is the child you once were, but still exists within you whenever you're in the dream. In fact, that child, age 2, 3, 4, it doesn't matter, that child from your past is really the foundation of your dream. In fact, it's really the child's dream, not your dream. But somehow we've all taken on the child's dream and we're all caught in that dream. But the foundation of that dream always goes back to that child. And sometimes it can even go back into previous lifetimes. That's not something we need to be concerned with, but it's possible. Okay, so thank you, Melissa, for your question. And if you want more information, just watch some of the videos on the website. They're all free. Now, I wonder why that's going on non-stop. I have no idea what to do about it. Anyway, I apologize. So the next question is from Jody from Oregon. Leonard, I have been appreciating your teachings on the ego. My mind has never been this still before. I'm very grateful to you. And a couple of times I've gotten really, really big headaches. I feel like it's my ego. What do I tell it? What do I tell my ego? Many thanks. Okay, Jody from Oregon. This is almost natural. It's normal that if you spend some time where your mind is incredibly silent, you're very present, you're very relaxed, very peaceful, you're opening into presence, it won't take long before the ego jumps in to intervene. It doesn't want you present for a whole number of reasons, which I've outlined in the past episodes. a number of reasons. What is that saying? It looks like it's one person trying to Instagram me. I don't know why. Anyway, whoever it is, please stop. One of these days I'll be more computer literate. Okay, now what was I talking about? Yes, it won't be long before the ego jumps in to distract you and pull you out of presence. The ego doesn't want you to be present. It doesn't like it for a number of reasons. When you're present and your mind is silent, it feels to the ego like it might be disappearing because it's used to never-ending thought. That's the world it lives in. It lives in a world of never-ending thought. It's almost like they're the bones of the ego, the structure of the ego, these never-ending thoughts. So when your mind falls silent, what does that feel like for the ego? It feels like it's disappearing, or maybe it even feels like it's dying, and it won't allow that. It will never allow itself to die or be killed off. There's no way. So it has a bag of tricks to pull you out of the present moment. Now, one of those tricks that it will employ, and I've seen this happen many times over the past years, it's really good at creating a headache. It'll create a headache, which is usually a repressed feeling wanting to surface, but the ego and the mind is not allowing it. The headache appears. So you do have to, in a sense, have a word to your ego. What does the ego need to know? It's not going to allow itself to disappear or die, but that won't be enough. Even if you persuade it, convince it, it's okay, ego, you're not dying, you're not disappearing. No deal, says the ego. No, I don't care. Why? Because when you're present, your mind is silent, the ego is no longer in control. And it doesn't like that. It has to be in control of you so it can perform its role in your life, which is to protect you against living in a world, the pain of living in a world where no one is present. That's the ego's role in your life. So it needs to be in control to protect you. But in order for it to be in control and continue its role of protecting you, it needs to keep you in the dream. Otherwise, its role doesn't make any sense, because when you're present, there's nothing to protect you against. And so the ego doesn't like that. So you have to really reassure the ego. This is what I would say to the ego. And if you, there are, I have an ego meditation. I think it's available through our app, Awaken. What's the app called? Awaken Now. So you have to come into right relationship with the ego, and it'll take a little time, but it's along these lines. Beloved ego, I am so sorry. I'm so sorry I haven't been appreciating you and recognizing all that you've been doing for me, protecting me in this painful world where no one is present, making sure that I don't have to re-experience those painful feelings from my childhood. You've been doing whatever you can to get me the love you think I need, or get me accepted because you know deep down I don't feel accepted, or to prove that I'm good enough because deep down you know I don't feel good enough. So you're trying to deal with that. You're trying to help me to feel good enough or to feel loved. The only problem is nothing works, and it's all based on those limiting beliefs. So if I become present, or if you become present and your mind is silent, the ego's got nothing to do. It doesn't know what to do. It feels lost. So you have to offer the ego a new job, a new role in your life. After you come into right relationship with it. And that new role in your life, that new role for the ego, is in a way, it's kind of playful, which is the ego can be your assistant life manager. You say to the ego, I'm an eternal being, ego, which is true. I'm an eternal being. I can't play in the world of time without you. You can be my partner in the world of time. You can make appointments and remember this and plan that. No problem. You're good at all of that. In the meantime, I'm just here. But I will not abandon you, ego. Even if I'm fully awakened, I will not abandon you. I will not turn against you. In fact, ego, the more you release me into presence, the more you relax when I'm present, the more you let go when I'm present, the more I will send love your way. Love, gratitude, and appreciation. And every night when you relax and you take on this new job, ego, every night before I go to sleep, I'll say, thank you for a job well done. And the ego will relax. It wants to feel that acknowledgement. It's been working so hard for you, and it's discovered that nothing works, so it becomes frustrated, and it starts beating you up. So it's just a meditation where you come into right relationship with the ego, and you help the ego to relax out of its anxiety of being abandoned or disappearing or not having a role in your life. You have to help it come out of all of that. So if you have a headache, Jody, it's not that complicated. If you have a headache, be present with the headache. Be really present with it. Don't try and get rid of it. Everybody's trying to get rid of everything. Just be present with the headache. Feel it, be present with it. You close your eyes, you're present with it. And then just ask the headache, okay, headache, what message do you have for me? What do you want me to know? What one sentence expresses you perfectly? Don't go beyond that. Just that's enough for the ego. The ego will respond and deliver its message, or it will express itself in a way that will give you insight onto what's happening with the ego. But you have to remember that you are not your ego. You're transcendent of the mind and ego. That's the truth of who you are. In presence, you open up into an entirely different dimension of who you are. It's that dimension that you've always been, but you haven't been aware of it. You've disconnected from it because you've gone too far into the world of the mind. And that has happened to virtually everyone on planet Earth. Until they come out of the dream, they recognize and remember presence. Now, everything changes because you're here now. You're not lost in a dream world. You're not lost in the past or future. You're here now. You're of the present moment. You can still play in the world of time, but you don't get lost in the world of time. When you get caught in the dream, you know how to negotiate and navigate your way out of the dream back to presence. It's so simple. Then slowly, you'll just be present. It becomes more and more difficult to be pulled out of presence, to be pulled back into the dream. Now, I'm not saying it won't ever happen. Of course it might. But if it does happen that you're pulled out, there are things happening in your life that catch you, no problem. You know how to deal with it because you have step 2 and you bring yourself back to presence. But you never reject the dream. You never judge the dream. You never try and fix the dream. You just own, acknowledge, confess, and reveal the dream. What is the theme of my dream? Is it, I don't feel loved? I'm looking for love. Is that the theme? Is the theme around love? Is it around acceptance? Is it around not being good enough? What is the theme of your dream? Is it around trying to prove yourself? What are you trying to prove? Who are you trying to prove it to or for? All these questions come up just spontaneously and naturally, but you don't have to do anything. Awakening is not an analytical process. It's a process that involves becoming present and then recognizing what happened. How did you get caught out of presence? How did you get pulled out? What happened to you? And then you start to connect the dots. Oh, the repressed anger is coming. That originates from my father's anger when he was angry at me when I was 4 years old or 2 years old. Or my needs, the needs that are not met. That's coming from my mother and father who were so busy and so caught in their own dream, they weren't really here for me in the way that I needed. And so it goes on and on. So it's very important, Jody, that we come into right relationship with the ego. One thing I will say is it is not possible to defeat the ego. And there's a very simple reason for that. The one trying to defeat the ego or get rid of the ego is the ego itself. It's a trick. Don't fall for that trick. So you can't get rid of the ego and you can't defeat the ego. The only thing that's possible that will liberate you and free you into the world of now is to come into right relationship with the ego. And right relationship with the ego is only possible as you awaken into presence. Now, why would I say that? Because when you're present, you literally are the energy of love, acceptance, and compassion. There is no judgment in you. You're overflowing with love and acceptance and compassion. That's the energy you bring to the ego. Ego, I'm so grateful to you. Ego, I love you. I love you like I love the trees. I love everything because I am love. The ego will relax. It needs to know you're not going to try and get rid of it. So whenever you read in some spiritual book or you listen to some spiritual teacher saying, with enlightenment, you get rid of the ego, don't listen to that. You don't get rid of the ego, but the ego is dramatically and radically, its role in your life is dramatically changed as you become more and more present. No longer does it seek to pull you out of presence. If anything, it's just a loving, cooperative partner in the world of time, supporting you in the world of time, assisting you in the world of time. Yeah, and it's the simple truth. If you're too present, if you're very, very present, you can't be too present. But if you're very, very present, deeply, deeply present, there quite literally is no time. It's actually true. There's no time. And there's nothing of you outside of this moment. And then you might even go one little step further. Now you don't even exist. Only God exists. Only this moment exists. Everything around you exists. And somehow I have disappeared and only God is. But that can only occur at the very deepest, deepest level of awakened presence. I have disappeared and only God is. Another way of expressing that might be, I am absorbed, completely absorbed into the isness of this moment. The isness. Everything is. Nothing was or will be, but everything is. Everything in this moment is. Even in a very strange and mysterious way, your true past is. Your true future is. It's all contained within this extraordinary moment of now as you awaken into it. Now, if you awaken into the depth of presence that I'm describing, the level of awakened presence, it's not about staying there. If you stay there, great. But if you stay at that very deep level of presence, you're not going to participate in the world of time. You're not going to go to work. You're not going to have relationships. You won't have any conversation with anyone because you don't exist anymore, not in any separate way. You're here. You're utterly here, but that's all. And it feels beautiful. If you have 2 or 3 moments at this deep level of presence, it will transform your life. Just those 3 moments of eternal presence. Okay, so now I'm going to go to the next question, which is from Alice from Newark, New Jersey, or should I say New Jersey? Okay, dear Leonard, why do souls come to the material world and forget about their true self in relationship with God? Much devotion to your teachings. I think I'm going to have to read that again. For your information, by the way, when I look at these questions, I haven't seen them before. Jim hands them to me about 5 minutes to 4. I don't have an opportunity to look at them, so I'm reading this for the first time with you. Dear Leonard, why do souls come to the material world and forget about their true self in relationship with God? Well, that's a good question, a really good question. And if you can come into the material world, which means the world of physical form, which is where we're born into, the world of physical form. We've come from the formless world, the soul's dimension, which is formless, no physical form. We've come from the spiritual dimension, or that's here as well. That's also without form, no physical form. The heavenly dimension, no need for physical form. We exist in those dimensions without physical form. But when you come into physical form, you are coming into a material world in the sense that it's the physical world. It's here. Now, let me tell you what would happen if you just came into the physical world, the material world, and you just stayed present. You're just present with what you see. You're just present with what you hear, feel, taste, touch, smell. You're utterly present with what is here through your senses. You're fully present with what is here. Then your experience would be one of heaven on earth. That was the whole plan. That was the whole point of your journey, to it's a journey from heaven, which is where you began your journey, or just before the journey began. You existed in heaven, paradise, one with God. It's actually true. You did. And we all have a very, very deep unconscious memory of that, which is a problem when it comes to awakening, because that memory of heaven is interrupting your journey. It's making you at an unconscious level want to go back there. But that's not the direction you're supposed to be going. You're supposed to be continuing until you find not heaven, you emerged from heaven, now you're in heaven on earth. That's the material world. You're in heaven on earth. That's the physical realm. Wow, this is amazing. The heaven that I have come from has manifested into physical form. Let me walk upon planet Earth. Let me walk upon the earth. Let me inhale the air. Let me touch another human being, because I can't touch others. Not physically in these other realms. Wow, that feels so nice to be touched. It feels so nice to be held. It's just an experience of heaven on earth that you've come to experience. That's how it's supposed to be. But somehow along the way, we felt that in this emerging from heaven, before the beginning of time, or at the beginning of time, the very moment when time began, as we emerged from heaven, we felt separate, because we've just come out of heaven. We don't feel what we were feeling in heaven. We don't feel the oneness with God. We don't feel that that perfection of everything, oneness with each other. We don't feel it. It feels separate because we've emerged from heaven. We haven't arrived at our destination yet. We've just emerged from heaven. We don't like it. We judged it. No, I want to go back to heaven. If you can relate to that, raise your hand right now. Do you want to go back to heaven? Did you think it was not right that you should be sent down to planet Earth, like going to visit hell? That wasn't what you wanted. But you have to continue on this journey from heaven to heaven on earth. Now, what happened to us, because we judged it, because it felt separate, the moment we judged it, we judged the separation. The moment we judged it, the moment where we emerged from that heavenly dimension, the moment we judged it, we locked ourselves into the very thing we were judging, which is duality and separation. We locked ourselves there. And we've been lost ever since. We've been locked there ever since. Everyone, pretty much almost everyone on planet Earth, is imprisoned now within the world of the mind, which at a deeper level will reveal itself as a state of illusion and separation. And we don't know the way back. We've forgotten that there's another way. And then we create God and religion to comfort us in our illusory world, rather than recognize, wow, I'm caught in some kind of dream here. My mind continually takes me into the past or future, away from the present. I need to gently correct that and come back to presence. I need to bring the whole dream and the way it works to consciousness. I need to become more aware of my thoughts and feelings. I need to come into right relationship with the ego, the inner child, the limiting beliefs. You see, you even have to come into right relationship with the limiting beliefs and the repressed feelings and the judgment. If judgment arises within you, you have to come into right relationship with it. Otherwise, it will grab you and take you into the past or future. That's what it's designed to do. So how do you come into right relationship with judgment? Judging. What about blame? Blaming. It doesn't matter what the content of the thought and feeling is. You just acknowledge it, own, acknowledge, confess, reveal. That's it. Okay, so we just got lost along the way because of judgment, because we wanted to do things our way, because we've been given free will by God, and we've not really known how to handle free will. Okay, I'm not going to go further into that other than to say that's what happened to humanity. We made a mistake. First of all, the biggest mistake we made was that we experienced the original separation from God. And that moment of emergence from heaven, we experienced it as separation, but it wasn't. It was never separation. It was not separation. It was a distinction between God as everything, which is what we love, and God as nothing, which we've been running from the beginning of time. God as nothing. God is everything. God is nothing. And beyond everything and nothing, God is, I am, thou art. Now that's the end of the journey right there. God is, I am, thou art. Just relax into that. It's so simple. Now, the more present you are, the easier you will navigate your way through the world of time, even within the dream. It'll be so much easier to come out of the dream because of the level of presence you've awakened to already. So being present is very, very helpful in that regard. And there's a reference, Alice refers to the true self. Well, the true self is you in presence, no past or no future. Jesus gave us a clue when he said only those who are like children. He didn't say only those who are childish. He said only those who are like children. And what he's referring to is a child comes into the world with no preconceptions, no beliefs, no past experience. It just comes into the world right now, here, now. This is where you meet God. This is where you open into oneness. No past or future, just this moment, here now. I am here now. I'm not here a moment from now or a moment ago. I'm here, present with what is here, now. And now. You see, it doesn't stop. Now. There's absolutely no reason to go back into the mind. It doesn't stop. And now, I'm still here, now. Now, there might come a point later on, after I finish this episode, I might have to use my mind and start to calculate, which box will I use? What will I do with this? What will I do with that? That's okay. I can use my mind as much as I like whenever it's appropriate. But if I start getting anxious about, I don't think I can make it, it's too much, I'm overwhelmed, it's too much, and I confess to some of that, I will confess to it. But if that arises within me or within you, that's coming from the dream. It's not coming from the present moment. The present moment and living in the world of time based in presence is benign. There's no disturbance coming in from the dream or from the past or future. There's no anxiety about the future. There's no limiting belief or repressed feeling or judgment interfering with your experience of presence, even as you play in the world of time. You're just here. Okay. So your true self is you in presence. It's the awakened dimension of you. It's who you really are. And you are so much more than anything you can imagine with your mind. You have no clue. We have no clue. I had no clue. But now I know because I went through my awakenings and it opened up. I've watched a couple of near-death, what do they call, NDE, near-death experiences on YouTube. And some of them are very powerful and quite beautiful, what they describe as they leave the body. Well, that's kind of what I experienced, or very similar, a lot of it was. But I didn't die. It just opened up within me. And that's really where this teaching has emerged from those awakenings that I went through at various stages of my life. All right, the last question is from Colin from Wisconsin. Colin says, when I am being present, I feel a pressure in my abdomen, navel area. It's like a resistance to relaxing and being present, and I feel unsafe, some fear. Would you say something on this? Well, again, it's coming from the mind and the ego because you're entering into the unknown. And the way the fear of the unknown shows up can very easily be a pressure in your abdomen. I've heard that many times over the years. Or it might be a headache, or it might be tightness in your back or your neck. Whatever it is, the ego and the mind have the ability to manifest that into your body as a way of distracting you. So if I were you and you feel pressure in your abdomen when you're present, don't consider that a problem or something you have to fix or get rid of. No, no, no. The fact that you're feeling pressure in your abdomen in this moment is of the present moment. You're feeling the pressure in the abdomen in this moment. So you have to be present with what is here in the present moment with you if you're going to remain present. So you be present with that feeling of pressure, but you don't necessarily know what it's about or why it's there. You're just feeling it. You're being present with the pressure. Then you invite the pressure to express itself. Pressure in the abdomen. If you can express yourself in one sentence right now that beautifully expresses you, what will you say? Or you might ask, what's causing so much pressure? What are you under pressure about? What's the pressure? You just get the pressure in the abdomen to express and reveal itself. That's all. Do you have a message for me, pressure? Now, something might come up that suddenly everything makes sense and the pressure disappears. More than likely, that will happen if you really connect with the pressure or with whatever's showing up. But it is definitely a resistance to relaxing and being present. And that resistance is coming from the mind and ego because of the fear of the unknown, the fear of letting go, the fear of not being in control, the fear of something completely different. No, we're not used to it. And so naturally those things arise. It's really it goes with the territory. It's part of the journey. You're going to experience at times. Now, feeling unsafe. You're used to living in a world of illusion, but you're used to managing it to some degree where you feel safe. But if you suddenly, those safeguards, those mind ego guardrails, if they're not there, then naturally the mind and ego, that dimension of you that lives in the mind and ego, is going to feel afraid, is going to feel anxious and unsafe. There's fear. So whenever there's fear, so simple. I say this so many times, I've said this so many times over the years. There's nothing wrong with feeling fear unless you don't know what you're afraid of. So the first thing you do when you notice there's fear is you ask the fear, what are you afraid of? Maybe an answer will come instantly. Or maybe it will come tomorrow or the next day or a week from now. Maybe it won't come in the form of answers. Maybe it'll come in the form of a sign on the side of the road that suddenly triggers something. Oh, that's what the fear is. So let it all be an unfolding mystery. It's just a question of knowing how to be with whatever shows up. That's what's most important, how to be with whatever shows up. And the most important thing is to be present and in right relationship with whatever shows up. Now, whatever shows up is not coming from presence. It's coming from the dream, from the past, the future. But that past and future dream has been with you. You've been involved in it. You've been in it. You've been identified with it. So naturally, it's with you. So as you become more and more present, you create a space between you in presence and whatever shows up within the dream. Now there's a space you can be a witness to whatever shows up in the dream. Don't take anything too seriously. Waking up, awakening, the journey of awakening is meant to be light and playful and sometimes fun. It's kind of amazing, actually, when you start connecting the dots. You start to recognize, wow, that's why I'm like the way I am. That's why I don't feel good enough. That's why I don't feel loved. It comes from my mother. My poor mother didn't know how to love because she was never loved herself. Or maybe the feeling of unsafe, you can pick that up from your parents. If your mother or your father generated that energy of not feeling safe, you pick up on that as a child, and then that's your reality. Then the rest of your life, at a very subtle level, you feel unsafe. So fear is not something to fear. It's something to engage with and just ask the question, fear, what are you afraid of? And if an answer doesn't come, ask it again. What are you afraid of? But don't ask it too many times. Otherwise, you'll create a new level of anxiety. I've got to answer this question. So it's all about relaxing and being in the flow of this teaching. Presence, bring consciousness to when you're not present, how you're not present. Who are you when you're not present? What just happened? It's just that flow between step one and step two until slowly, gradually, you awaken one morning and things look different. It's like you found a new home. Your previous home, your home that you've known all your life, is the world of the mind. The past, the future, all your past experiences, all your limiting beliefs, or your beliefs, or your understandings, or your knowledge, all of that. You're so familiar with that. That's where you've been living, in the past and future world of the mind, governed by the ego, right? So suddenly, you're in a new dimension. So just relax, feel it, experience it. Who is here now? I am. You see, I am is the awakened you. It's the I am presence that you are. It's the true master arising from within. This is ultimately where we all have to get to. The true master, the I am that I am, the eternal silent presence of pure consciousness, that I am and that you are, has awakened. It's here now. Who is here now? I am. Now, very briefly, I'll just share this one secret with you. I'm sure I've shared it before in these episodes. But the ego is programmed by God to surrender only to the true master arising from within. And you have to be very present and still and come into right relationship with the ego so it will relax. It will release you into deeper and deeper levels of presence so the true master can arise from within. Then you can say, God, it is accomplished. I am here now. At last I am here. It's been a long journey, God, over many, many lifetimes, but I realize that it's been a journey from heaven to heaven on earth. I guess, God, I got a little distracted and lost on the way. I guess for many, many lifetimes I've been the prodigal son, doing it my own way. But I've come back, God. Thy will be done, not mine. I'm here now. I am here. God will say, who is here? He will respond, I am. That's the awakened you, the I am that you are. Okay, folks, so we've come to the end of this episode. I hope you've enjoyed it and found it useful. I'm really just here to support you in your journey of awakening. We're all on a journey of awakening, even if we don't know it. All those people who don't know it, sooner or later they're going to recognize that they're supposed to be on a journey from heaven to heaven on earth. They're supposed to awaken into the truth of who they really are, even in physical form, or particularly in physical form. And you know, the physical form that I'm referring to as you become deeply present with what is here, even that will begin to dissolve and reveal itself as energy and light and love, unimaginable love, a level of love that we're not familiar with. It's the love that emanates from God and oneness and presence. And it is so healing. It is so life transforming just to experience that for a few moments. Now, don't go looking for it. Don't try too hard. Don't practice presence. It's too simple. That's what I'm trying to get across here. It's too simple. You notice when you're in the mind, you're thinking, okay, that's all right. You're not going to hell because you're already there. You just notice it very gently, and then you exercise your God-given right to bring yourself present with something that is here in the moment with you. If you can see it, you can be present with it. If you can hear it in this moment, you can be present with it. If you can smell, taste, touch, feel it in this moment, you can be present with it. The moment you're present, really present with something that's here in the moment with you, you come out of the past and future. Now you're present. You're here now. This is it. This is what you've been seeking. This is it. So stop seeking. It's already here. And then perhaps all you'll say then is, hallelujah, thank you, God, and thank you. Okay, folks. So as I said, I'm going to be away for about a month as I make this transition. It might be a bit sooner than that, but I'm not sure. I'm heading to North Carolina, Asheville, North Carolina, and we'll see what happens when I get there, because I don't know. All right, folks. So thank you for attending all these weeks together. I do strongly suggest you subscribe if you haven't already, because that's one of the ways we let you know when the next events are scheduled or when the next episodes are scheduled. In the meantime, there is so much material, audio, video, written material you can refer to on my website. And there's another thing that you might find very worthwhile and very interesting is that on the website you'll find links to past retreat videos. We've filmed every retreat for the past, I don't know how many years, and they're all there, beautifully edited and presented for you. If you go on the website, you'll find the links, and you'll find how to go to those videos and view them. But the truth is, watching the videos from the retreats is almost the same as being at a retreat itself. You will be amazed. That I can promise you. Okay, so subscribe if you've enjoyed this episode, even though I've been a little bit distracted, for which I apologize. But if you've enjoyed the episode, please click like and post a comment. I really do read your comments and I enjoy reading them. Otherwise, it's kind of hard to talk into a camera or a camera lens and not get some sort of connection with those that I'm talking to. You know, when you post a comment, it's like in that moment of me reading the comment, we're kind of connected in a way. We're sort of meeting each other in some mysterious way. So post a comment, subscribe, like, whatever. Okay, folks. So thank you very much, and I'll see you next time. Okay, thank you. What happened? Okay, so I didn't even know how to turn it off, but I figured it out now. In fact, before I turn it off, I'm going to look at some of your comments. Jane Guan, thank you, Leonard. Charmaine Williams, good evening from Maryland. Blessings to you, Leonard. Lynn Devereaux, hi. Hello, Leonard. Thank you for this opportunity, for deepening into presence, and for the easy to understand 2 steps. All the best with your moving plans. Well, thank you. Well, there's so many beautiful comments, lots of hearts, lots of love. And that's what we need to share with each other, lots of love. Okay, everyone, once again, I apologize for any distraction that I might have experienced, all these little things coming up on my computer. And anyway, over and out.